Every human being forms attachments. It begins early in life, before we understand philosophy, before we question our emotions, before we even understand ourselves. We attach. As children, we attach to our parents, to the warmth of familiar voices, to the safety of predictable routines, to the quiet comfort of knowing someone is there. These attachments are not mistakes. They are necessary. They teach us how to survive. They teach us how to trust. They teach us how to belong. But as we grow older, something subtle begins to happen. Something so gradual that most people never notice it. Attachment expands. It stretches beyond safety and slowly begins to shape identity. We begin attaching ourselves not only to people, but to expectations, to roles, to imagined futures. A child says, "I want to become something great." A teenager says, "I must succeed." An adult says, "My life must look a certain way." And without realizing it, a silent agreement forms in the mind, a contract with reality. It sounds something like this: if life unfolds the way I imagine, then I will be happy. But life rarely signs that contract, and yet most people continue living as if it did. They attach their happiness to success. They attach their worth to recognition. They attach their peace to the behavior of others. At first, it feels harmless, even admirable. Ambition seems noble, love seems virtuous, goals seem necessary, but hidden within attachment, there is a fragile dependency. Because the moment your peace depends on something outside of you, your peace becomes vulnerable. If the outcome arrives the way you hoped, you feel relief, temporary relief. But if reality moves in another direction, if circumstances shift, if people change, suffering appears. Not always loudly, sometimes quietly. A lingering anxiety, a constant worry, a subtle tension in the background of your mind. This is the quiet trap of attachment. It disguises itself as passion, yet often becomes a source of constant unease. Think about how often people worry about losing something they already have: a relationship, a reputation, a position, a lifestyle, even before anything has changed. The fear of losing it begins shaping their behavior. They become cautious, defensive, sometimes even controlling, not because they are selfish, but because they are afraid that the stability they built their happiness upon might disappear. And the truth is, eventually, everything changes. Everything changes. Relationships evolve, careers shift, people move, circumstances transform. Impermanence is not an exception in life. It is the rule. Yet most people live as if permanence is guaranteed. They build their happiness on structures that cannot last, and when those structures inevitably change, they feel betrayed by life itself. But life never promised permanence, only movement. The Stoic philosophers understood this deeply. 2,000 years ago, they observed something most people still struggle to accept. Suffering does not come from events themselves. It comes from our attachment to how we believe those events should unfold. The Roman philosopher Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Accept the things to which fate binds you." At first glance, this might sound passive, even defeatist, but the Stoics were not teaching surrender. They were teaching clarity. They recognized a simple but powerful truth: the more tightly you grip life, the more painful it becomes when life inevitably shifts. Consider something simple: a beautiful sunset. When you watch it, you appreciate it. You do not demand that the sun remain frozen in the sky. You understand it will fade, and because of that, you enjoy it more deeply. But when people treat relationships, achievements, or circumstances differently, they begin to cling. They demand permanence from things that are temporary by nature. And this is where suffering begins. Attachment whispers a dangerous sentence inside the mind, a sentence so common that most people never question it. This must stay exactly as it is. This person must never leave. This success must never fade. This image of myself must never change, but reality never obeys those demands. Reality moves, it evolves, it transforms, and every time it does, attachment turns change into pain. Attachment does not only create suffering when something is lost, it also creates suffering while something still exists. Because once you become attached, fear quietly enters the room. The fear of losing, the fear of failure, the fear of change, and this fear begins shaping behavior. People stop speaking honestly because they fear damaging a relationship. They avoid risks because they fear losing status. They hide their true thoughts because they fear losing approval. Slowly, their lives become smaller, not because life demanded it, but because attachment made them cautious. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus warned about this centuries ago. He said, "Do not seek for things to happen as you wish, but wish for things to happen as they do happen." This statement contains an extraordinary form of freedom, because when you stop demanding that reality match your expectations, you stop fighting the nature of life itself. Most people exhaust themselves resisting reality. They resist aging, they resist mistakes, they resist change, they resist uncertainty, and this constant resistance becomes emotional fatigue. Detachment, however, works differently. Detachment does not mean you stop caring. It means you stop clinging. You still pursue goals. You still love deeply. You still build meaningful relationships. But you remove the silent condition that says, "My happiness depends on this remaining forever." That single shift changes everything. If you'd like, I can also continue with, at first, the idea of detachment can sound cold. People often misunderstand it. They imagine detachment means becoming distant, emotionally numb, or indifferent to the world. But that is not what the Stoics meant. True detachment does not remove love. It removes fear. When attachment dominates a relationship, love slowly becomes possession. A person begins thinking, "This person belongs to me. My happiness depends on them. They must never change." And without realizing it, love becomes fragile, because the moment another person behaves differently than expected, the attachment reacts with anxiety, with jealousy, with anger. But love without attachment feels different. It is quieter, stronger, more stable, because it does not demand ownership. It simply appreciates. The Stoic philosopher Seneca once wrote, "He who enjoys the present without anxious dependence upon the future is truly fortunate." Notice the difference. To enjoy something without dependence means you are free to love deeply, while understanding that nothing in life is guaranteed. This does not weaken love, it purifies it. Because now love is not driven by fear of loss, it is driven by appreciation. Imagine loving someone while understanding they are not yours to control. Imagine appreciating a friendship without fearing the day it may end. Imagine enjoying success while knowing it does not define your worth. This mindset creates emotional strength, not emotional distance, because when attachment disappears, your actions come from intention instead of insecurity. You are kind because you choose kindness. You are loyal because you value loyalty. You give because generosity reflects your character, not because you are afraid of losing something. This is what the Stoics meant by inner freedom. Freedom from the invisible chains that tie your peace to external circumstances. And once those chains begin to loosen, life becomes lighter, less desperate, less tense, more authentic. One of the greatest illusions the human mind creates is the illusion of ownership. People say, "My house, my career, my reputation, my success." But the Stoics viewed this language differently. They believed everything external is only temporarily entrusted to us. Nothing truly belongs to us forever. Not possessions, not status, not even the people we love. This idea may feel uncomfortable at first, but it carries profound wisdom. Because the moment you accept that everything is temporary, your relationship with life changes. You begin treating experiences like borrowed gifts. You appreciate them fully, without assuming they must last forever. Marcus Aurelius wrote something remarkably simple about this. You have power over your mind, not outside events. That single sentence reveals the entire Stoic philosophy. You cannot control whether people stay or leave. You cannot control whether success rises or falls. You cannot control how others see you, but you can control your character, your perspective, your response. And when you focus your energy there, attachment begins to dissolve because your identity is no longer built on unstable ground. Imagine building your sense of self on something that cannot be taken away. Your integrity, your discipline, your wisdom, your kindness. These qualities belong to you in a deeper sense. They are internal, and what is internal cannot be stolen by circumstance. This realization transforms how you move through the world. You still participate fully in life, but now you do so with lighter hands. You hold things gently, instead of gripping them tightly. Detachment is not something you suddenly achieve. It is something you practice. The human mind is naturally wired to cling, to security, to certainty, to familiar patterns. So learning to release attachment requires deliberate awareness. The Stoics trained their minds through small daily reflections. One of their most powerful practices was called negative visualization. It may sound pessimistic, but its purpose was the opposite. They would imagine losing the things they valued, not to create fear, but to create gratitude. Imagine waking up and briefly considering that the people you love might not always be there. Suddenly, your conversations become more meaningful. Your patience increases. Your appreciation deepens. Another Stoic exercise was reminding themselves that every moment is temporary. A meal, a conversation, a walk through the city. Each experience appears and eventually disappears. And instead of resisting that reality, they embraced it, because impermanence makes life precious. The Japanese have a similar concept called mono no aware. It means the gentle sadness that comes from recognizing the fleeting nature of things. But within that sadness, there is beauty, because what fades becomes meaningful. Detachment allows you to experience that beauty fully. You are no longer distracted by fear of loss. You are simply present. When attachment loosens its grip, something remarkable happens inside the mind. You begin to experience a different kind of peace, a peace that does not depend on outcomes. You can pursue goals passionately without fearing failure. You can love deeply without fearing abandonment. You can enjoy success without fearing the moment it fades. This is emotional freedom. Most people spend their lives trying to control the external world, trying to guarantee happiness through achievements, possessions, status, or relationships. But the Stoics discovered something far more powerful. Peace does not come from controlling life. It comes from mastering your response to life. And once you understand this, attachment begins to dissolve naturally, because you no longer expect permanence from temporary things. You simply appreciate them while they are here, then allow them to change when they must. Marcus Aurelius wrote a final reminder that captures this wisdom perfectly. Receive without pride, let go without attachment. Receive what life offers, let go when life changes. And in that simple rhythm, you discover something many people spend their entire lives searching for: inner stability, not dependent on fortune, not dependent on approval, not dependent on circumstance, but rooted in something far stronger, your own mind. And once that stability is found, the chains of attachment quietly fall away.